All right, well, welcome to all of you who get to see this recording of this our first ever live panel, EnviroStars live panel that we're doing. Today, we're getting to talk about food service sustainability and food production sustainability. I have the pleasure of introducing one of our guests, Gabriella St. George from Omnivore Meats. She's the co-founder, and Omnivore Meats is a Seattle-based business with a mission to change the meat industry. And so we'll hear a lot more about that. We do have another guest that was slated for today, Art Stone from Honest Biscuits. So hopefully Art finds his way in. If not, then we just get to talk more about Omnivore Meats. So either way, it's a win-win situation. Let's go ahead and start out with some background on Omnivore Meats, and then we'll jump into topics like food waste and packaging, some pretty big, like hot food sustainability topics. So yeah, if you can go ahead and get us started, Gabriella.
Awesome. That sounds great. And thanks for having me. So as Christy mentioned, my name is Gabriella, and I'm one of the co-founders of Omnivore Meats. And we have a mission of changing the meat industry. What we do, my partner and I, we founded our business about 3 years ago. And he and I are Culinary Institute of America graduates, professionally trained chefs by trade. And we were on a mission to make meat more delicious, sustainable, and nutritious for everyone, and really have an emphasis on food access for everybody as well. So what we've done is we work with local farmers throughout the Pacific Northwest. We work with meat ranchers and also vegetable farmers to create a delicious and nutritious blend of beef and veggies together, and as an alternative to 100% meat and 100% plant-based products.
Awesome. That's totally cool. Can't wait to hear more about what you're doing with the sustainability. Art, thanks for jumping in. I think you can hear me. I see that smile. So would love to just get a little background on Honest Biscuits and yeah, hear a little bit more before we jump into some more targeted questions on hot sustainability topics in the food industry, specifically food waste and packaging. So if you could give us a little background, that would be great.
Sure. I'm Art, owner of founder and owner of Honest Biscuits. We started, I've had several different careers, and but I've always had a passion for food. And so I started this business sort of inspired by my grandmother in rural North Carolina. She made biscuits, but using all natural ingredients, and it was on a farm. And, you know, I often say this whole all natural organic thing, it's not some newfangled thing. It's just the way like our grandparents ate and stuff like that. So I don't feel like I'm, you know, doing anything incredibly new, but just trying to make really good biscuits and Southern food, but do it well, using really good ingredients, using local ingredients. And started selling at farmers markets. So it was just me. I would go bake them and go sell them at the farmers markets. And now we have a store at Pike Place Market. I'm in that store right now. And we sell wholesale to some grocery stores and coffee shops and stuff like that. So.
Wonderful. Well, that sounds great. Yeah, I realized I scheduled this at like lunchtime and hadn't gotten lunch yet. So now I'm like thinking about biscuits, and here we go. The stomach is starting to rumble, but it's okay. We'll move through. Well, thank you so much both for those intros. I'd love to switch to this topic of food waste. I think, as we all know, it's a really big hot topic when it comes to anything in you know, sustainability, but especially in the food service industries. I just, you know, have a brief fact here that in 2018 alone, the EPA estimates that about 63 million tons of wasted food were generated in commercial, industrial, and residential sectors. So I'm wondering if you can both speak to the importance of this issue and how your businesses specifically are working to combat waste. And you can talk about the challenges of that and the innovations, anything to do with how we're trying to curb this food waste issue. And whoever wants to start, I know I didn't really establish an order, but
I can jump in. We can switch off, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability has been part of the company since we started. It was just how I lived and how I am. The same thing with like the local ingredients and using local food is how I was living my life personally. So I'm like, why wouldn't I bring that to the business? it gives you a sense of place, but it's a good thing environmentally, for food not have to travel, across the oceans or whatever. The closer it comes, the less transportation. It was just, it was really organically, in the old sense of the word, in that, I was selling in farmers markets. I would meet farmers, and they were like, give me ingredients to try, or I would see ingredients that were really great, and I would start incorporating them into my biscuits and got different flavors. We've also, like, food waste. It's a bad thing financially as well as environmentally. It's like the more you waste, the more, the less chance you have of making money. So it's like getting rid of it is a good thing all the way around. And we've always tried to use everything that we can. For instance, onions, like a lot of the stuff that we use vegetables wise, we save the onion skins, we save a lot of that, the waste part of it, and make stock out of it for the vegetarian gravy that we make. We make our own stock basically out of discarded, what would be considered waste. So we've always looked for ways to use anything that we can and not waste anything. Now, biscuit wise, we don't sell biscuits after, they're good for several days, but we won't sell them after the day they're made. But we've always donated leftovers to food banks, or we make some into croutons. And closer to the holidays, we make stuffing mix out of those. And so we've tried to use stuff as we can, but anything that we can't use, we donate to one of the local food banks.
That's awesome. Great to hear.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I feel like it's always a challenge, right? Like what you're saying, Arden, just consistently innovating ways just to try and minimize our waste and try and sourcing locally, doing the best that we can. And ultimately, I think it's a little bit hard to get rid of food waste altogether, right? Because with that number that you had mentioned, Christy, that also accounts too with like waste that is from the grocery store, or waste that comes after we go grocery shopping and we say we're gonna make a dinner and then that never happens. And then by the time it does happen, the food's bad. So there's initiatives that we're doing as well on our end, like Art was expressing, just to try and help minimize the impact. So for one is minimizing like the length of our supply chain. And what that just means is that when we're working with our farmers and our vegetable suppliers, minimizing how far those ingredients need to be traveling, which is why we source locally. And I think that that's important, because the less that an ingredient needs to travel means that it's going to have a longer shelf life, meaning it'll last longer because it doesn't take so long for it to travel from point A to point B. So that's one initiative on our part, as well as we keep our products frozen. So our meat is sold raw, and it's cooked from obviously a raw state, and we keep all of our products stored frozen as well, just to extend the shelf life. That way, if we don't sell as much, this was a big thing for us, especially in the beginning of last year when the world shut down, is by us keeping our products frozen, it extended the shelf life so that when grocery stores were closing and we didn't know what was happening, we weren't selling as much product, but it was okay because it was kept frozen and it could go throughout that period and still be all right. Other things that we've experimented with and that we do when we're doing our processing at our meat facility, of course, there's always waste and there's product that doesn't make the cut. And what that means is that there's maybe product when you buy a package of, I'll backtrack a little bit. When you buy a package of ground beef at a grocery store, that's normally in a plastic vacuum sealed package. That's actually being made at the processing facility, like where we get our product made at. Sometimes there's things that happen, like let's say the product isn't exactly 1 pound, or let's say the color doesn't look right, or maybe it's a little bit offset in the package and it's not perfect for the customer, where they may see it as a defect. So what we do with that product there is we keep that for ourselves, and we use that for recipe development, for developing new products, for our photos that you see on our Instagram. We'll donate those ones to the food bank, depending on where they fall. Just because they're imperfect, I guess you can put it. They aren't the product is perfectly fine, but it doesn't look pristine. So just helping so that we aren't throwing those items away and donating whatever is 100% feasible to donate. I think we're always expanding and trying to figure out ways to minimize our waste. And it's a little bit difficult because, of course, with perishable products, it's not like you can have it when it's bad, right? When it's bad and there's no saving it. So another thing that we've tried to do as well is just making sure that we aren't overproducing. So aren't producing more than we are actually selling, so that if it were to happen and product does go bad, we aren't throwing so much of it away.
Yeah, no, those are all great. I think thinking upstream, first having that mentality and knowing where you can cut down on waste there, it just makes a huge difference. So with the supply chain, shortening the supply chain, that's really huge. I'm curious too, if either of you, this has been something fairly new to me, but there are apps now that I've seen that there's Too Good to Go. That's one of the apps that people are using now that connect restaurants or manufacturers with people who can get items that are menu items that are going to be that are left over or I guess close to expiration, and connects people with those that they can get that at a discounted rate or potentially free. Is that something you've looked into or would consider in the future or are doing?
I can go first. We haven't explored any of those routes just because our product is such a high risk item. And in terms of handling and such, it makes it a little bit tricky because we don't want anyone to receive product that maybe is on its way out or isn't at its fullest potential for one. And then also, we just haven't done much research in that sense. Yeah, I don't know how much more to contribute to that. So.
Yeah, I honestly wasn't even aware of those apps, so.
Yeah.
No. Well, good. Glad that we can throw some facts with the panel here today. That's good. Maybe put that on the radar. I know something else that I always think of, and I think you were kind of speaking to this a little bit, Gabriella, especially because you work with things like meat, and I'm sure Art, you work with that as well. Is that there's a lot of issues sometimes with, to my knowledge, the idea of this of the public health part of it and being able to if you have all this leftover food. I had a friend who worked at a coffee house, and at the end of the day they would have quite a lot left over, and I was just like, well, it's perfectly good, why can't you just give it to the employees even, or just have them take it home? And I think some places that's okay, but for some reason in that area there was it was part of the public health rule that they weren't able to do that. So I mean, is that something you both run into?
We've run into that before. Well, we actually always run into that. And the reason why is because as we've been developing our product further, our product runs under and gets approval from the USDA. And what that means is that in order for our products to be sold, they have to be approved by the USDA first and produced in a USDA approved facility. And our labels that we put onto our products have to be approved by the USDA as well. So whenever we're doing recipe development, or if we're doing testing, recently we were doing some testing on the grind size of our product, and also lean to fat ratios of our product as well, just to see what tastes the best. And when we're doing that testing, there's no USDA approved label at that point, because we're testing to see ingredients or mixing times or the lean to fat ratio of what we have in our product. And since there's no USDA approved label, we can't ever sell that. That can only be donated. It can be used as samples, but it has to be given away. It can't be sold. And it can be difficult sometimes to, going back to the food waste thing, to not have that go to waste. So I think that that's another important aspect of it too. So yes, we have run into that before to some degree, and we typically will use it as samples or we'll donate it to the food bank. What we have on our website to try and offset that and just to promote it is folks can actually donate a pound of Omnivore to the food bank, and it's maybe like the imperfects and they're at a discounted rate, so that if people want to, they can also have a tax deductible contribution as well and be donating food to the food banks too.
Yeah, our product is pretty low risk, so we don't really run into regulatory issues as far as that's concerned. But I mean, we're still concerned with safety, and but we really, biscuit-wise, they pretty much all go to the food bank. Now we do biscuit sandwiches or waste in that regards, like if somebody makes a mistake or. I mean, generally our staff just eats those. I mean, sometimes it's me. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times they're like, well, I get this is my lunch because I, made it wrong or made two by accident or something. We really don't have a lot of waste. But you were going back to looking upstream, if I can like go off on a tangent here for a minute. One frustrating thing as far as waste is concerned, because we were very proud of the fact that we generate almost no trash. When we first opened the store, I didn't even want to put a garbage can out there, but I was told that we had to because people might have outside trash and stuff like that. Because even before it was required, everything we had was either compostable or recyclable, mostly compostable. And we're very proud of that and try to promote that. But we still end up with a big bag full of trash at the end of the day, and that's mostly from suppliers. Stuff that we receive has to be packaged, and some of it is very tightly controlled as the amount of type of packaging, and there's just no practical way for a lot of stuff to be packaged sustainably. I mean, I'm hoping that people are working on that now and that'll change, but that's something that we have no control over, or very little control. I mean, it's really nice when we can buy from smaller companies and then we have that sort of negotiation. I mean, we have in our distribute some of our wholesale, we have customers that we have reusable containers rather than, what's traditionally done, is put in a box or some sort of container and thrown away. Well, we've, closed that loop downstream, but upstream, we have very little control over that. Unless it's somebody really small and, we can figure something out. For the most part, they dictate all of that. And for the most part, some of that is, is dictated by regulations, of how things have to be packaged and how things have to be treated, when they come to you. So, I'm hoping that, like I said, people are working on those issues and how to make that part of the process more sustainable, because even though we're not generating trash, we're still, I don't know. It pains me to see big bags of trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a follow-up for that, Art. Is there any, I mean, I know it sounds like it's frustrating because there isn't a ton that like you as the actual person who's producing the good can do, but is there any, like, I'm thinking for a business that wants to figure out how they can deal with it from the supplier level. Is there any influence you have if you call up the supplier or email them and just like say, hey, we've been a long-standing partner, we've been buying for you from a while, can you reduce your plastic, for instance? Do you think that holds any weight to them?
Not a lot, honestly. I mean, like I said, if it's smaller people, because we do, we try to support as much as possible smaller local companies, and I mean, more in, as we've grown, try to bring some other people along, or some of our suppliers like Beecher's Cheese are bigger than we are, but we don't have a lot of influence. We're just not big enough. I mean, honestly, if we got big enough, I would love to execute that sort of influence. But, and like I said, the other thing is a lot of it's dictated by regulations, especially when the USDA is involved, they have all kinds of super tight regulations and they have reasons for them. But, I think more R&D needs to go into that. That's something probably beyond us and beyond our suppliers. It's with packagers, it's with the larger companies driving that. If they can come up with more sustainable ways of packaging that are still safe, hopefully that'll drive things along that, and the regulations have to change because we, in Washington, for instance, there are very strict rules about gloves. You always have to wear gloves anytime you're touching food that's going to be served to a customer. It doesn't matter how clean your your hands are or what you're doing, how much you're touching them, you can never touch them. So we go through vast amounts of gloves, as does every food business. And honestly, there is a movement came from environmentalists to refine those rules, with current understandings, because sometimes rules just get established and they're working, so nobody's going to rethink them, right? And I don't think at the regulatory level is taking a look at sustainability, and how that you can provide the same amount of safety with sustainability. So, the people that we have to talk to a lot of times are like, no, this is the only way we can do it. This is required by, regulation, like, vacuum sealing things in plastic. And, there's also other factors. I'm sure there's probably maybe ways that can be done, but it would just be impractical or too expensive. But yeah, I think a lot of it's gotta go higher up the food chain than we are, and we don't really have enough power to push back. We do when we can, and I always, ask about alternatives, but yeah, most of the time we don't have the power to really exert very much influence. We can voice our opinion, but that's about it.
Definitely. And I'm curious now that we've, really moved into the packaging topic, Gabriella, for you on more of the production side of things, how does that all factor in?
Yeah, echoing exactly what Art said, it's, for us, it's for food safety and for regulation, especially with raw meat. We can't go into a paper package because then it'll degrade, we can't go into a biodegradable package because of the moisture, it will degrade. Even if we go into a styrofoam package and we have our product frozen, then it just cuts our shelf life because it's not vacuum sealed, which means that there's a higher potential for food waste. And also some styrofoam isn't as sustainable. You're playing like checks and balances, right? Like which is the best option, having maybe styrofoam instead of single-use plastic, or having single-use plastic and a longer shelf life. It's always an ongoing battle, I think, in that sense. And also too is just the adaptation of our equipment that we have available. And what I mean by that is the equipment that we process and that a lot of meat manufacturing facilities use. It's almost like airplanes in this sense. These machines are built to last for forever. So they're old machines and they've been around since forever. And with that said, now there's some companies that sell biodegradable or more durable plastic film packaging that we could use, but that also means that that's a huge investment of new packaging machines, for example, because this new type of film won't fit our current packaging machines. So from a sustainability aspect, then there's that too to consider. Okay, well, if we get this new packaging machine, then what happens to the old one, right? Then that just kind of goes to waste. So there are initiatives that are there, but I think that we're still, just as a whole, not us as just our business, as an entire industry, there's so much room for improvement. And I think that we're starting to recognize that more initiatives need to be put into place, but it's really difficult to go from the top and the trickle down effect, until it reaches us. So that's a struggle there. But when it comes to packaging, things that we do have control over are things like our label size. If we reduce the size of our label, that just means that it's that much less plastic that's used. Our labels, what we end up using is a paper that's lined with plastic instead, rather than having a full plastic label or like a sticker that goes onto our package, just so that paper is a little bit more sustainable than single-use plastics. Again, there's not as much that's being produced. Just trying to be more mindful of the choices that we're making given what we have, and reiterating also this over and over, it's always a checks and balance game for us. Like, what is the offset and what's the best option at the end of the day? And that will be something that we're going to continually be changing over and over again and just trying to improve. So yeah, like you said, it is difficult, especially in our space with the single-use plastics, and I wish that we can get rid of them. I want to so badly. So when that day comes, we'll have to have a celebration.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think packaging, and that was a reason I really wanted to bring that up. And on our team, when I asked, what sort of questions would you want to know or ask? And people said definitely the single-use plastic, the packaging, like it's just I'm hopeful because I think it's something that everyone is like really focused on, and certainly there are other really important environmental topics, but especially in this industry, in any sort of production industry, I think zeroing in on how we deal with waste is really crucial. So I'm hopeful that there's more and more coming to light. It is tough though, especially with what you were just saying, Gabriella, with things like meat, because unlike I imagine with art, with some, biscuits that could be like takeout eventually, or like in Seattle, you have to, like, restaurants have to have either recyclable or compostable takeout containers and things like that, so there's something going on there, but with like a vacuum sealed necessity kind of product, that would be really tough. So that's where we look to science. I'm very hopeful that something will kind of be like plastic, but not as horrible. So I also wanted to just, you both have spoken a lot about what your businesses do for sustainability, but what is it that makes you that sets you apart and that makes you the most proud of what you do in terms of sustainability in your business?
I can go first. I think we have multiple things that we're excited about, that we enjoy, and that we're passionate about when it comes to sustainability. I think what we're most proud of, though, is our ingredient sourcing, and our commitment to consistently improving our sustainable initiatives in terms of packaging for our product and for shipping, just trying to be more sustainable in that aspect and more mindful. But currently, if I had to choose one thing that I think that we've gotten a hold on, is our ingredient sourcing. So all of our ingredients are sourced within either Washington and Oregon. So they're all sourced locally from small family farms throughout the 2 states. We work with small beef ranchers. We aren't working with the Tysons and the Purdue's of the US. So putting money into their pockets, and also working with vegetable farmers that aren't growing corn, wheat, and soy. So we don't use any of those products in our product, or any of those ingredients in our product that we create. And even more too, that when we were intentionally creating our product, one, we wanted to create something that was a delicious alternative to 100% meat. 2, we wanted to create something that was nutritious as well, and also sustainable for the environment. And the environment aspect, when it comes to our approach to that, is being more mindful about the ingredients and the vegetables that we're using. So what I mean by that is we're using butternut squash, we're using chickpeas, and we're also using carrots as well. So having just a diverse range of vegetables to promote biodiversity, also to promote crop seasonality. Those crops are a little bit more resilient. They also have, for example, I can go through the line of them, but for example, lentils being legumes, they're known to be nitrogen fixing. We don't have to go into a big science explanation, but meaning that they help bring nitrogen into the soil, and they also grow in pretty much any type of environment. The Washington state is also the largest producer of chickpeas, I learned. I think I may have said lentils. I'm sorry if I said that before. Chickpeas. So the largest producer of that. So keeping things local and promoting our local agriculture economy by using carrots. Carrots are really great because they are resilient to harsher temperatures. They're also a natural tiller of our soil, just being a root vegetable and getting in there. And they're resilient to cold temperatures. They grow year round. And also our cabbage, or I'm sorry, not our cabbage, our butternut squash. Butternut squash is great too, just because 1, it's nitrogen fixing. 2, for example, if you've heard about like the 3 sisters of like corns, bean, and squash, how they're like the perfect trifecta. With squash as well, the leaves are also, they provide shade for our soil, and it prevents soil erosion. And it also just helps to keep moisture in the soil, so that farmers, when they're growing things like when they're growing squash, for example, it helps just to keep water in the soil so that they don't have to use as much water. So a lot of things like that I won't get into, but just being more mindful about what types of ingredients we're sourcing and how they benefit not only our health, but the environment too in any capacity. So I think that's what we're most proud of and that we focus a lot of our attention on too.
I'd say we're most proud of just, our record, I guess, when they changed the regulations in Seattle that to require certain kind of packaging, we didn't have to make any changes because we were already doing that. And I will say, like, we've been in business almost 10 years. We've had the store open 6 years today. And we've always been that way. We've always pretty much used compostable stuff. It used to be harder to come by, and there were a few things that weren't compostable, but things have really gotten better in the past 6 years, and a lot of the stuff is much more readily available. There's still one issue, and that's when we sell our wholesale biscuits, we still put them in these plastic clamshells because nobody's come up with anything yet that will serve that purpose that well. Though I was also reassured by one of my environmental experts. She said that those are actually better, because we're sending them out across the country. In a lot of places they don't have public compost, and so even compostable, it's commercially compostable. So our cups are silver, well, not silverware, but like flatware. The knives and forks and stuff like that look like plastic. In fact, people from other parts of the country sometimes are just incredulous. They can't really even believe that they can put that in the compost and it'll be okay. But a lot of people don't realize it's like, well, you can put it in your backyard compost. It has to go to some place like Cedar Grove that has processes to break those down. But so anyway, our packaging for wholesale retail still has plastic in it, but it's statistically more likely to be put in recycling than the same would be to be put into compost. So it's actually, the best solution right now. But like I said, things are constantly changing and getting better. So I think in the future that'll change. We're also some of our partners, besides using small local producers and farmers and stuff like that, our biggest ingredient in our biscuits is the flour, which it comes from Shepherd's Grain. It's a local co-op of farmers throughout the Washington state, and a few in Idaho and Oregon too. But so all the wheat is grown sustainably, locally, and I've actually gone out and visited the farms, and what Gabriella was talking about, they are putting into action. So they're non-certified organic because we're actually organic only encompasses certain things. Like you can still spray stuff, it just limits what you can spray. Well, they're working towards it's a process because it takes years for the soil to get there, but their goal is no spraying at all. And they use no-till farming. So some of that stuff that Gabriella was talking about, the shade and keeping the moisture in if you don't plow the fields, it keeps a lot of that moisture and a lot of the good worms and things in there. It's a better environment for them. So they use these the equipment that they use when they're planting seeds. Instead of doing little furrows, it's like injects the seeds down into the soil. So they don't ever, turn the soil over. And they also rotate their crops, which is where a lot of legumes and stuff like that they plant in between the wheat. So rather than having to spray and add a lot of stuff to eventually the soil will just take care of itself. So I'm really proud of what they're doing too, and how that contributes to what we're doing. So.
I love that. Oh, that's so exciting to hear on both your ends of just the great work that you two are doing. I know that for us as the EnviroStars team, we're very excited to have you both because we know you're such champions. And an important note that champion, that doesn't mean that you're doing everything perfectly, because no one can, right? But like it's very clear that what you both are doing with your businesses is just like, you're going above and beyond, and that's what's needed. So just a huge shout out of appreciation to both of you for the amazing work you're doing, and for being EnviroStars too. I think we're coming to a close here. So my last question is just, For businesses looking to become more sustainable, or for folks in the food service or food production industry who want to begin like a new business, what are some tips that you have or advice that you have to make sure that they, stay more sustainable?
Well, I'll start this time. I would start with EnviroStars actually, because starting a small business is pretty overwhelming. Unless you're coming from a position where you have lots of money and can hire a bunch of people to do a lot of things. Most small businesses start with one person, and they soon get, if you're at all successful, you get completely overwhelmed with all regulation and paperwork and stuff like that. So sometimes paying attention to these things and evolving with these things is really difficult. I mean, one great thing is, I'm assuming you guys are still doing this, EnviroStars came out and did like an audit, and that was a very proud moment too, because they found very little that we weren't doing right, but they found ways that we could improve things. And if you're looking into that early stages, they can help guide you in the right direction. So that would be my advice if you're local, is to use the resources that are out there to help you, because you can't do everything yourself.
That's great. I did not tell Art to plug us, by the way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Art had said. One, reaching out to EnviroStars for finding out more initiatives and ways to be more mindful and more sustainable in the way that you're running your business. And also not being afraid just to look out for more resources and help with running your business too, so that you can have the mental capacity to be able to focus on things like sustainability and improvement. So organizations that are out there like the Seattle Good Business Network and Business Impact Northwest, those organizations, they're really good information hubs and resource hubs that the people at all these organizations really focus on helping you to get the resources that you need so that your business can thrive, so that you can, again, have that mental capacity to focus on growth and not just hiring employees and all of the paperwork like you were talking about, Art, that you just get bombarded with. So it can help you to just have a little bit of a more holistic picture of what you need to do in order to make your business function. And I think also too is reaching out to your local community and finding other businesses. What I found in Seattle is that people who are in food, they're very receptive and are eager to collaborate. The food world is very small here in Seattle. It's a pretty small circle, no matter how big we think that it is. And I can speak for myself, and I think I could speak on behalf of you as well, Art and Christy, that if you just ask for help as well, like how did these businesses overcome these struggles and these hurdles, that we would all be more than willing to just lend a hand and help, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we all did, or maybe skip a few steps and not call them mistakes, but just learning lessons. So I would say that would be really good tips of advice as well.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Always asking for help, and for any businesses who are tuning in, there were a few who tuned in for the webinar, and then I know that there are quite a few that want to catch this later when we post it on our YouTube channel. So anyone watching, if that speaks to you, that call to action to reach out, please do reach out to EnviroStars. We're happy to help you in any way we can. And then to the other networks that Gabriella and Art mentioned. Thank you both so much for coming on and speaking about this issue. I mean, it's hugely important topics, and great to have experts in the field be able to talk about them with us. Best way to reach you if people have questions, can they just go to your website, email you? What's the best way?
art@honestbiscuits.com. That's the best way. It's just my name, art@honestbiscuits.com.
For us would either be Gabriella, which I know can be a little bit difficult to spell, but you see my name, I think, here in the video, Gabriella@omnivoremeats.com. And if you don't have that, you can also reach out to us through our website at omnivoremeats.com, and then there's an email link, and contact us, and that'll come straight to me or my partner. So
wonderful. Well, thanks again so much to everyone who tuned in, and for those who will tune in later. And thank you to our wonderful presenters. and hope to check both of your businesses out in person at some point soon.
Thank you for having us, Christy. I appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to anything in the future. So thank you for having us. And now I'm going to have to go eat some biscuits too.
Yeah, I can't wait to check out the Omnivore Meats. I'm excited about that.
Great.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christy.